In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the muscles of the arm, the upper arm specifically. And just so you guys know, in anatomy, when we say arm, that's actually what we mean. We mean upper arm. We use the word forearm to describe the forearm. So I know in layman's terms, the arm, it's your arm, it's your whole arm. But for some reason in anatomy, it kind of tends to mean upper arm. But regardless, there's not a ton going on in the upper arm actually. Well, I don't mean to sell the arm short. It's an engineering marvel, of course, but compared to the forearm or the lower leg or the hand, there really aren't that many muscles. So let's just dive right in. We'll start with our elbow flexor, our chief elbow flexor, the brachialis. Now, the biceps has kind of stolen all the glory of elbow flexion. We think of the biceps as an elbow flexor, and I imagine that's because we've named the elbow flexion exercise in the gym, we've named it the bicep curl. But what it really should be called is the brachialis curl, because the brachialis is a pure and powerful elbow flexor. It originates here on the anterior portion of the humerus and inserts on the ulnar tuberosity, which you can kind of sort of see through that bicipital aponeurosis right there. Now, biceps, which is our next muscle, they, oh, you know what, I actually did skip a muscle. Before we get to biceps, I'm sorry. Let's talk about coracobrachialis. Let's actually hide the biceps. So here's brachialis, that's a better view anyway. And here's coracobrachialis. Coracobrachialis attaches on the coracoid process of the scapula, that's its origin, and it inserts on the medial surface of the humerus. It does shoulder flexion and shoulder adduction. It's not a terribly powerful muscle, but it's there and it certainly has a role to play. Now, let's take a look at biceps, the star of the show of the arm. It's a pretty cool muscle. What's so strange about it is that it's an arm muscle that doesn't attach to your arm. It has no humerus origin or insertion. It actually attaches to your scapula. And to make it a little bit even extra confusing, it has two origins. It has or two bellies as well. It has a long head, so we call that the long head of the biceps brachii, and a short head of the biceps brachii. Now the short head is called the short head because its origin is just ever so slightly, I mean, in this picture it almost looks the same, but the tendon and the muscle itself and the origin is ever so slightly shorter. So there it is. It has an origin on the coracoid process. The long head actually has a tendon that goes through the bicipital groove, which is why it's called the bicipital groove, or the IT groove. And it goes up over sort of anterosuperior on the humeral head and attaches to the supraglenoid tubercle and actually the glenoid labrum as well. And that helps stabilize the shoulder quite a bit actually, just like the rotator cuff. You can kind of see that there's no rotator cuff right here. Well, you have the biceps tendon. So it does definitely help stabilize the shoulder, that's for sure. So the biceps, even though it has a reputation of being an elbow flexor, and it does flex the elbow, sure, but it's actually really a powerful supinator. So if you picture tightening a screwdriver with your right hand, righty-tighty, right? That's supination. You're turning your palm up. Your biceps actually does that. And if you put your hand on your biceps and go tighten a screwdriver, if you can find one, you'll feel it contract, especially in the kind of last 20 or 30 degrees. Anyway, it sits on top of brachialis though, so don't worry. All those bicep curls you've been doing in the gym, they'll make your brachialis bigger, which will make your biceps stick out a little bit, so you haven't been wasting time. Don't worry. And plus your biceps contribute to flexion as well. But you see a lot of bicep curls, they have a supination component. So you start with your hand kind of like your thumb facing forward, and then you supinate as you do the bicep curl. That does help activate the biceps. Anyway, so brachialis, biceps, coracobrachialis. And that brings us to our last muscle in the arm, or actually, sorry, we have two more. But we're just about done. So that is the triceps, and the triceps is interesting. Biceps was cool, right, with the two bellies and the two origins. Triceps has three bellies and three origins. So it's the lateral head and medial head, and those are named for the attachment on the humerus. So the lateral head attaches laterally, and the medial head attaches medially. Ever so slight difference, but you can see it. The long head, which is actually the most medial of the three, but it doesn't attach to the humerus at all, goes way up here and attaches to the infraglenoid tubercle. So it's kind of cool. The biceps, which is sort of the opposite muscle, attaches on the supraglenoid tubercle, and the triceps attaches on the infraglenoid tubercle. You have a lot of powerful musculature going around the head of your humerus and attaching to the scapula. Next time you're doing a triceps pull down or really any activity of your arm, you better believe that all these muscles around the humerus are involved. Anyway, what was I rambling on about? Okay, so triceps, 3 muscles, lateral head. That's the one you can see most easily. If you've ever looked in the mirror and tried to flex your triceps, that's probably what you were looking at. Then if you're really buff, you might see the long head as well. The medial head's kind of hidden and obscured under all of that, but there they are, lateral head, medial head, long head. They all attach on this triceps tendon, which attaches to the olecranon process. So you have these 3 organs with one common insertion on the olecranon process. Very powerful elbow extensor. You do have another elbow extensor though. It's not quite as impressive looking. It's right, where is it? Oh, here we go. It's right here, this little guy called Anconeus. Anconeus. So it originates laterally in the lateral epicondyle and inserts on the lateral olecranon process. There it is. And it just has a slightly different angle of pull, and it helps, just prevent, it helps the elbow move better. It's certainly not the primary elbow extensor of your arm though. And that's it, guys. That's it for the arm. Brachialis, Coracobrachialis, Biceps brachii, Triceps brachii, and Anconeus. All right, our next video will cover the forearm. Get ready. Go drink some coffee or something. There's a lot of muscles in the forearm. Thanks, guys.